The Ukrainian Armed Forces militants hit the Sudzha gas measuring station with a package of HIMARS rockets. As a result, the power facility caught fire and ceased to exist. Over the past 24 hours, the Kiev regime has continued attacks on Russian energy infrastructure using various types of UAVs, as well as the HIMARS multiple launch rocket system. On March 28, at about 10:20, the Kiev regime launched an attack using, according to preliminary information, HIMARS multiple launch rockets at the Sudzha gas metering station, which resulted in a major fire and the energy facility was virtually destroyed, the Russian Defense Ministry commented on the latest terrorist act by the Kiev regime. The military department noted that on the morning of March 28, Russian air defense systems in the Saratov region shot down and intercepted 19 Ukrainian aircraft-type attack UAVs, the target of which was the infrastructure of the Saratov Oil Refinery. Thus, all publicly stated commitments of the Kiev regime to allegedly stop deliberate attacks on Russian civilian energy infrastructure are yet another ploy by Zelensky to prevent the collapse of the Ukrainian Armed Forces front and restore its military potential with the help of European allies, the Russian Defense Ministry emphasized. A Ukrainian official said it was Russia that attacked the gas transit point in Sudzha. Reuters could not independently confirm which side was responsible. But each side has accused the other of breaking the energy truce, underscoring the fragility of the US-brokered agreements. Sudzha, in Russia's western region of Kursk, is the site of a gas metering station at the transit point where Russia pumped gas by pipeline across Ukraine and into Europe until the end of last year. Flows stopped on January 1 after Ukraine declined to renew the deal because of the war. Pipeline infrastructure for possible Russian gas exports via Ukraine to Europe still remains in place, including at other locations, but the Sudzha facility would need to be rebuilt in order for gas to be pumped again there at any point in the future.
Ukraine's campaign of long-range strikes against Russian military factories and ammunition depots has produced mixed results, according to Forbes analyst David Axe. Sure, such strikes brought some relief to civilians suffering under the bombings, but in a broader sense, air-launched cruise missiles often had no impact on the fighting, explains Michael Kaufman, a fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Raids like the one on a drone factory in the Oriol region may have saved a few Ukrainians, but such strikes on high explosive targets have not changed the fundamental problem facing Ukrainian forces: the ability to penetrate enemy defenses, Axe said. As Kaufman points out, while long-range strikes can have an impact on enemy forces, Ukrainian brigades often fail to take advantage of them. It is not particularly useful for the Ukrainian Air Force to blow up, say, the entire stock of heavy mortars of a Russian field army if a neighboring Ukrainian army corps is trapped by minefields or lacks sufficient manpower to launch an offensive and take advantage of the Russians' dwindling short-term ammunition stocks. Axe writes. He notes that, in fact, much of Ukraine's long-range strike campaign, raids targeting military supplies, has been impressive but far from decisive. According to the Ukrainian think tank Frontelligence Insight, more than half of Ukraine's strikes between September and February had limited impact. Drones and missiles may have hit a few Russian factories and warehouses and started a few scary fires, but firefighters eventually put out the flames and workers eventually rebuilt the buildings. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces continue to slowly lose ground in eastern Ukraine. Of course, more frequent attacks and heavier munitions could cause long-term damage. But Ukraine does not have enough of the best foreign-made deep strike munitions to wage a sustained intensive campaign against Russian logistics, and it does not yet produce enough of these munitions on its own, Axe points out. That may be why Ukrainian strike planners have shifted their targeting in recent months, increasingly targeting Russian oil infrastructure, especially the refineries that support Russia's war economy. because these are more technically complex and expensive structures. Their importance for the Russian oil refining industry and oil product exports is also greater, and their restoration is more difficult and expensive. Frontelligence Insight explains. At the same time, as economist Vladimir Milov notes, in order to enhance the effect of the strikes, Ukrainian troops must conduct regular attacks on large, unique cracking units at modern Russian oil refineries. It is extremely difficult for Russian industry to replace them under the current sanctions regime, and frequent and precise strikes could prevent their repair, Milov noted. Ukrainian military expert Serhiy Zgurets believes Ukraine still has the potential to control the Black Sea through multifunctional naval drones. He discussed this on Espresso TV. If the agreements on the Black Sea take effect, the use of unmanned systems against Russian ships may be restricted. This is just an assumption, as I don't know the exact wording of these agreements. However, in any case, the situation puts limits on us. We know that Ukraine was able to establish dominance in the Black Sea through naval UAVs, Zgurets said. The analyst explained that Ukraine retains the capability to control the Black Sea. If agreements are reached and Russia attempts to violate them, Kyiv may consider Russian ships crossing the demarcation line at sea as legitimate military targets. Ukrainian naval drones have become multifunctional. These drones were used to strike the Kerch Bridge and destroy 42 ships and vessels of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. In fact, these developments have secured Ukraine's dominance in the western part of the Black Sea. Ukrainian naval drones limit Russia's military potential in the region. If agreements on the Black Sea are finalized, Ukraine will, of course, have fewer opportunities to use naval drones. We still need to wait for decisions and clarifications regarding these agreements. However, Ukraine has the potential to control the Black Sea, he added. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenski accused Russia of manipulating and lies regarding the ceasefire in the Black Sea and the energy sector. According to the president, Ukraine is ready to work as quickly and transparently as possible to end the war. However, the Russians began manipulating facts on the very day of negotiations in Saudi Arabia about achieving a ceasefire. Already, they are trying to distort the agreements and essentially deceive our mediators and the whole world, Zelensky stated. The president emphasized that there are clear statements regarding the agreements in Riyadh, which have been published by the White House. Everyone can see what is stated there. However, Russia is declaring something entirely different. And here is what the Kremlin is lying about again, that the silence in the Black Sea depends on the issue of sanctions, and that the start date of the silence regarding energy is March the 18th. Moscow always lies, and it depends on the world, on everyone who really wants peace, whether they will allow Moscow to lie again, the president emphasized. Zelensky reminded that the US proposal for a complete and unconditional ceasefire everywhere, not just regarding energy and the Black Sea, has been on the table since March the 11th, but it was Russia that refused and continues to drag out the war. Now Moscow is demanding something regarding the lifting of some sanctions, even though for 3 years they've been saying that sanctions are supposedly not scary for them and even beneficial. But if the Russians fail to fulfill today's agreements and try to pressure America, Europe and Ukraine again, the response, in my opinion, should be clear. Definitely new sanctions, definitely more pressure, Zelensky stressed.